Hi, I'm Alan from Gem Training International, and in this video I want to talk to you about a refractometer, what it is and how to use it. Now, the refractometer is a simple and relatively inexpensive bit of equipment that is absolutely essential to anybody getting involved in colored gemstones. What does the refractometer measure? It measures the way light passes through from air through a stone. And what this little instrument allows us to do is get that particular reading, and it also gives us the indication of whether the stone is singly or doubly refractive. An RI machine, which is as known as refractive index machine, will measure what the refractive index is of a particular gem, providing it falls between 1.5 and 1.78 on the scale in the machine, because some stones fall outside those parameters and therefore the machine is not going to help us. But many gemstones do fall within 1.5 and 1.78, and is a very, very sure way of determining whether the stone is a sapphire, a ruby, or a tourmaline, or whatever it happens to be. What do I mean by single and double refraction? Single refraction is the following. When light goes from air through a stone, which is singly refractive, the light moves through the stone in one line. If the stone happens to be doubly refractive, what that means is that when the light enters into the stone, it splits into two rays of light and runs through the stone, and only when it exits becomes a single ray of light again. And we can use the refractometer to measure a stone that is singly refractive and a stone that is doubly refractive, because using the polarizing filter we will be able to see both rays of light, and the difference between those two rays of light is what is called in gemology as the birefringence. What is meant by over the limit, OTL, which is a common abbreviation you will see in gemology? What we mean by that is that the particular gem that you may be having a look at, you will not get a reading on the refractometer. Why? Because it's over the limit. In other words, its refractive index falls outside 1.5 to 1.78. And you've got to remember that the liquid that we use, refractometer liquid, also is around 178, 179. And sometimes very difficult to read. So stones like spessartite garnet, zircon, for instance, and diamond, you will not be able to get a reading from the refractometer. But we have other gemological ways of checking what those stones actually are. Here we have a refractometer, a simple but essential instrument we use in gemology. Simple enough to use. This is the eyepiece that we use to look through to see the graduation scale is built into this machine. On the viewing table here, we're going to put some of the refractometer liquid, a very small amount, onto it, and we're then going to slide the gem forward onto it. But before we do that, we're going to have to light the scale. So I'm going to turn the machine, put the torch in the back of it, which means when we look through the eyepiece now, the graduation scale in the machine, we will be able to clearly see. I've shown you the components of the refractometer. I'm now going to demonstrate how you actually use it. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the polarizing filter from its casing and put it onto the eyepiece. Next thing I'm going to do is obviously insert the torch, otherwise we're not going to be able to see the graduating scale in the unit at all. Put in the torch and I'm going to open it up. I'm going to pick up the stone that we want to use, check its RI reading if we have one. Next thing to do is put the refractive index liquid onto the reading platform, otherwise we wouldn't get any sight at all. Now, I'm going to move the stone so that it's over the liquid on the reading platform, and I'm going to close the lid down. How do you look through the eyepiece? You know, when a turkey walks, its head moves up and down. We have to do much the same thing. We move it up and down until we're getting a very clear reading of the scale, and we would, if the stone has a RI, we will see the grey horizontal line running across the readings. I then turn the polarizing filter back and forth 90 degrees, and if the stone was doubly refractive, we'd be getting two different readings, a top one and a bottom one, when you move the refractometer polarizing filter. Let's see if we can get a reading on this white gemstone. Let me reload some refractometer liquid onto the reading platform. Gently slide the stone over it. Close the lid. Now, let's look and see. I can see the grading scale in the machine, but I can't see any horizontal grading lining at all. And if I turn the polarizing filter, it makes no difference at all, because there isn't any grey line, which means that this particular gem, the RI, is outside the grading scale of 1.5 to 1.79 in the refractometer. To summarize, a refractometer is a critical part of gemology, and anybody getting involved in colored stones must have a refractometer. Why? Because what a refractometer does, it allows us to identify for sure the RI of a gem, providing it falls between 1.5 and 1.78, 1.79. It also tells us if it is singly refractive or doubly refractive. And if we don't get any reading at all, it tells us that, for instance, it can't be, if it's a white stone, for instance, it can't be a white sapphire. It could be cubic, it could be diamond, but it certainly couldn't be a white sapphire. So by a process of elimination, we eventually can determine what the gem actually is.